What's up, everyone? This is Lewis Howes, and I've got a special guest with me today. This is a guy that I've been following for a year and a half, 2 years now, because he was kind of under the radar back in the day, a couple of years ago. Now he's kind of in the limelight, if you will. His name's Charlie Hoehn. What's up, Charlie? How you doing, my man?
What up, Lewis?
And Charlie and I actually just chatted for about, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour. I pretty much annoyed the crap out of him, asking him a lot of questions.
That
But
was the worst.
But so I'm excited to finally do the interview, which I asked Charlie to do a while back, and I've got some interesting questions for him. Hopefully, he'll be able to give us some great insights. But in my opinion, Charlie is the guy behind every main guy out there right now. He has worked with Tim Ferriss on his most recent successful book launch, The 4 Hour Body, which hit #1 New York Times bestseller in the first week, and I don't know, over the last few months, it's been #1 a number of times or something like that, something ridiculous, and sold hundreds of thousands, if not millions of copies by now. Who knows? It's already like one of the most recommended books on Amazon in the first month or two or something crazy like that. Most highlighted ebook, everything else in between, right?
Yeah, most highlighted of all time. We beat out every single version of the Bible,
I love it, man.
which is crazy.
So he's worked with Tim Ferriss. He's worked with Seth Godin. I think that was the first kind of major thought leader you worked with and kind of helped
Yeah.
launch you, right? Seth Godin. Then you
hmm
worked with Ramit Sethi and also Tucker Max. All #1 New York Times bestsellers. In my opinion, he was with them when he kind of helped launch all of their careers. Obviously, they're already huge at the time, but he's helped launch their books to make them even more powerful than they necessarily would have been without him. That's my opinion, at least.
I've done what I could,
There you
and
go.
I've been very, very lucky and very fortunate to have worked with guys who were already successful, who allowed me to tag along and have more creative control than I should have been allowed. So
Right.
it's
Well,
been fun.
I'm gonna try to get into the questions now, and I'm gonna let you kind of interject your stories and your background throughout this interview, as opposed to kind of just let you share your experience now. But
Yeah.
what I want to know off the bat is what really motivates you to do currently what you're doing right now, working with Tim Ferriss and all these other New York Times bestsellers. What motivates you right now?
What motivates me right now, and for the last few years, is just approaching my career right now as a mentorship and basically learning from the people who are the best in a field, which I think is incredibly important. So, like, online marketing to me is the most powerful, most easily leveraged, and the most scalable way to spread an idea. And most companies do not know how to do it. And so, and schools do not teach it.
Right.
You have to learn it on your own, as you
Right.
know. And so I just wanted to learn from the people I respected who were doing stuff that I thought was really cool, and went to each of them and offered them things that I thought were of value, and was able to work with almost everyone I've approached. I think the only guy that turned me down. This is kind of funny. The only guy that turned me down was Daniel Pink,
Huh.
and ironically, his the person who is working with him and helping him market his stuff reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I used your methods from your ebook to get this gig with Daniel
Wow.
Pink," and I was like, "What? I was the one who created that. Come on."
And tell
Uh,
people what the ebook is really quick, just so they know.
Oh yeah, yeah. In 2009, I wrote an ebook called Recession Proof Graduate. It was something that This is something that I have not disclosed publicly anywhere. I wrote that book when I was drunk one weekend, and
Sounds like a
I,
Tucker Max story already.
I wrote it because I got so fed up of explaining how I did what I did to my friends and to people who were asking me. Because I had a few college graduates who were asking me, and I kept having to explain like my process and why I did what I did. And also Ramit had asked me, if you ever want to write a guest post on my blog, like, go for it, and I'll put it up. And so it started off as a guest post. It was only supposed to be a few paragraphs, and then I realized halfway through my drunken stupor that I've written out 17 pages, single space of
Wow.
stuff. So, and then eventually turned it into an ebook,
Wow.
and which is still has legs, amazingly. So,
And how many downloads does it have?
cumulatively, I am positive that it is close to 100,000.
Wow, that's impressive.
And just through email lists and stuff, which aren't counted
Nice.
publicly, but it's posted twice online. One has over 70,000, the other one has 15,000. So,
Wow. You'll have to update your website because it says 60,000 still.
yeah, I will get on that, Lewis. Thank
Okay.
you.
Before we actually started this interview, you talked to me, which is something that's pretty interesting. And I asked you kind of a little bit about this question as well that I just asked you, and you said, I said, why are you doing this right now, and kind of what motivates you? And you said, it's not necessarily about the money and making a lot of money right now, although you
Yes.
could do that. You said it's more about really
Trust.
gaining people's trust and more with the biggest influencers that you can collaborate with, gaining their trust, so that when you want to do something else, you'll have that opportunity to reach out to someone who's got significant authority or influence and could help you out at that time. Is that right?
Yeah, so when I got out of college, my biggest issue was I had no credibility. I realized it wasn't a matter of not having a college degree or not having a high GPA. Like I
Right.
had all that stuff that they tell you you're supposed to have. What I didn't have was a body of work that was impressive that
Mm-hmm.
justified me getting paid a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was my whole goal in working with these guys, and was basically building a reputation. But you asked me, why don't you create a digital product that you could sell for hundreds, if not more than $1,000? And I certainly could. I am aware of it. I have thought of it, but it is not important to me because I see so many of my peers who are my age doing that kind of stuff. And it's like, come on, how much do you really know at 25?
Right.
Grant, I'm 24 and I've been very lucky and have had some awesome experiences. But what's more important to me is not making some quick money that's going to allow me to travel around the world. I can do that for the rest of my life if I want to. What's
Right.
more interesting is building a huge, crazy body of work and experiences that makes me an
A valuable.
unquestioned expert
Right.
and gives me this formula, this knowledge and wisdom in these key areas of starting a business that I'll have for the rest of my life to ensure that whatever I choose to pursue, I have maximized my potential for making it work.
Right.
And in terms of the blog, why don't I blog more? Well, I'm focused on every time I put out content, I want it to be super high quality. And I used to post pretty frequently, and not that my not that my content was bad. I mean, Seth Godin posts every day, and it's always pretty good.
Right.
But I want my stuff to be like just so memorable and so great that, and granted, I don't know if I'm living up to those standards yet, but I'm certainly trying. But I want it to be stuff that you can read 5, 10 years from now and still really love and still get a lot out of. And I'm very focused on building trust with my readers and expanding my readership, not to get 100,000 readers. I don't care about that, but building a solid relationship with the few that I have, and really making a lasting impact with them. Because I know if I do that, they're going to stick with me for the next 20 years.
But why not?
And
Why not try to get a larger audience? Why? What if it comes? Would you say?
what's the point of getting a larger audience if it dilutes it and makes it into a lesser quality audience? Like, there's so many idiots on Facebook who like try and get or not on Facebook, on Twitter, who try and get 100,000, a million followers, but it's like, who gives a shit if they're not listening to you?
Right.
Like, if they're not tuning in, if they don't respect you,
Right.
if they don't love your work, it doesn't matter. Those numbers don't mean anything. I would rather have a quality email list of 100 or 1,000 people that are going to take my advice on everything and convert when I actually need them to,
Right.
than a 100,000. Here's a story. So I worked with an author who, he hired me on board as a consultant, and this was a little while back when I was young, naive, dumb, which I still am. But no, this was not recent, but it was recent enough. And he hired me on, and he said, "Look, we already have this asset. We have an email list of 10 million people. 10 million people." And I was like, okay.
0.25% open rate.
My God. So they paid thousands to
Yeah.
have access to this, to have multiple emails sent out to this list. What they didn't know, and what I told them, I was like, okay, so how did you get access to this list? What is this list comprised of? It can't be anything important,
Right.
because you don't reach those numbers and maintain a quality audience.
Right.
And I found out that the audience was people who just like opted into those bullshit offers of like, complete this premium membership with Blockbuster and you get free Outback Steakhouse for a
Right.
week.
Right.
And it's like, oh God, do I really want to use this as a platform to market a book?
Right.
No.
Right.
And those, I swear to you, 10 million people. They were sent out to 10 million people. And how many people do you think just opened the email?
Maybe 10,000.
Less than 1,000.
Oh my gosh.
Total ripoff. So
Wow.
what is the point of having this huge audience
Hmm.
if it sucks? I don't want to market to low quality people who are looking for the best discount they can
Right.
find. I don't care about those people. I never want them as my audience, ever.
Sure.
I want people who are going to be high quality, intelligent, and people who value the work that I'm putting out and trust me.
Interesting. Awesome. But you're not going to turn people away if they want to subscribe to your newsletter, and
Absolutely not.
they're going to be engaged. Okay. So having
Yeah.
100,000 people that subscribe to you and are really engaged, you'll be okay with
It,
still.
it's tough to reach those levels and still be engaged. Like
Right.
the guys that I work with have reached that level,
Right.
but it takes time, and you have to be very definitive about what you're about.
Right.
I'm not definitive about what I'm about. I don't know. I haven't pigeonholed myself yet as the 4 hour body or Tucker Max or I will teach you to be rich. Like those guys have very specific things that they
Brands
do.
and
I don't. Yeah. I don't have a brand. I'm just some dude.
Nice. Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the next question now. Ramit, Seth, Tucker, Tim, and I don't know who else who's really you've worked with on the ground or whatever. But why did you pick those guys over anyone else?
Um,
And why no girls?
I've Why no girls? I'll tell you why no girls. I would love to work with girls. I would. And I'm looking for attractive girls who are online. They're just not out there, man. Like our niche is such a sausage fest. I can't help
That's
but
true.
be surrounded by guys.
That's true.
For some reason, they're the thought leaders, and the few thought leaders I've come across who are females are batshit crazy. Like they have real issues, real problems. Some of them. So I haven't found any yet that like have truly, really blown me away. If I did find one, I would absolutely work with them. I'm not sexist or any of that,
Right.
but.
What attracted you to
with
these four guys specifically? What attracted
Yeah,
you?
they all have similar, with the exception of Seth. I think Seth to me is just like this guru. He's brilliant. He's this visionary. And I'd read all of his work before I reached out to him. And he had influenced my career more than anybody. He was the first guy that I worked with.
Sure.
And
And did you do the summer internship program with him, or did you?
I got rejected,
Oh,
but
wow.
I did a virtual internship. He offered to all the people who got rejected. He was like, "Hey, if you guys want to do a virtual internship over the summer, I'm more than happy to do that." 200 people signed up, and I was like, yeah, none of you people are going to last the
Right,
entire
right.
summer, so I'm just going to outlast you. And sure enough, I did. It was like me and like maybe 10 other people.
Wow.
And then he promoted us and helped a lot, whatever.
Nice.
But the other guys, Tucker, Ramit, Tim, are all people that I could see myself having a drink with. Now, a lot of people might think that with each of them, especially with Tucker. But um, these guys typically attract people who are trying to extract something from them. They're trying to get something out of them. And I was offering free work for the exchange of having an amazing experience and nothing else. And a lot of people also offer that to
Right.
them.
I
A
was just
lot of
gonna ask
people
you
will
that.
reach out to Tim and say, "Oh, I'll do whatever." The problem with them is they're not specific.
Mm.
I had very specific things that I could offer to them, and I made it very clear, look, I can help you in these areas. This is exactly what I plan to do. This is the result. This is the impact it's going to have, and I'm going to do it for free.
I like that.
And yeah, and I had case studies to back me up of like I already did it for this guy once I had experience with one or two people, so it became a lot easier to pitch them that way.
And the blog post that you wrote on Tim's site, which I recommend everyone to check out, it's the 12 lessons learned while marketing the 4-hour body. Tim has one of the emails that you sent him. I'm just looking up right here. He has one of the emails that you sent
Yeah,
to Ramit first or something else or whoever, and Ramit forwarded it along. But looking at the email, it's very well structured. It's like a blog post, like headline, headline, paragraph, headline. You know, it's like achieve this result.
yeah,
Here's the 3 steps I'm going to achieve this, this, and this. As opposed to this long-winded paragraph. It's like a sob story of I want advice from you, and I'll
yeah,
work for free. I'll do anything with no direction. It turns people off, wouldn't you say?
yeah. And I'm sure you've received some of that,
Yes,
right?
I have, and it's
Yeah,
hard to respond to it.
absolutely. Right. So it's like more often than not, they have no direction. They're just
Right.
like, oh, let me please,
They're just excited and they want to
just let me
learn.
do something, anything. Like just give me some direction,
Yeah.
and it's like, no, these people are super busy. It's not a lack of receiving those offers. It's for a lack of receiving actionable offers.
Right.
When you have to, when you say, just give me some work, like just tell me what to do,
It's a lot
then
of work.
they're having to go through their head of like, okay, what am I going to tell this guy to do? And they're so busy that they're
Right.
just going to dismiss you right away.
Right.
But when you can offer like, look, I'm gonna build you this iPhone app. I've already got a prototype going right here. I want to partner with you on it, all this stuff. And it's like, oh,
Right.
okay. Like this is
Right. Right.
very concrete. I can see it right before my eyes, like how this could help.
Right.
Then it's like you're knocking down those barriers and you become much more likely to
Right.
end up working with them.
Right. So when you want to reach out to someone, make sure you give them some action steps of what you will do right off the bat. So if you're a programmer, go to someone's website and say, look, if you added this here or changed this, I could see that your website speed would increase or you'd get more whatever, you know?
And even better than that is like if you're a programmer, you would go, look, you have this flaw on your website. If you change it to this, it's going to be even better. I already did it and mocked up a proto or
Right.
like
Show
made a
them.
mock up. This is what it looks like. You have to show
Yeah.
them what exactly it's going to look like because as soon as you give them that visual or you're like, I already did it,
Right. They're like, okay, I'll do
it's
it.
just a matter of giving you the code to change it. Then
Right.
they're like, oh, sweet. So I think the tipping point that Tim talked about with hiring me, with at least considering hiring me on full time, was me reaching out after an episode of Random he did with Kevin Rose. I noticed in the comments on his blog, people kept asking for an MP3 version of the episode. So I was just like, hey man, people keep requesting this. I went ahead and made one. You can download it at this link. No hard feelings if you don't use it, but I thought it might provide some value to your readers. By the way, here's the best audio player that you can embed for the post, and just
Just
it
copy
made
and
it so
paste.
like yeah. So it's essentially doing work that he does not have time to do and just doing it, and yeah, just
hoping that
taking
it
some
works out.
initiative.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's not like I'm one of those people who would complain and be like, dude, you really need to do this for future posts. It's like, all right, that needs to be done.
sure.
I'm going to do it because I know Tim is too lazy to or
Awesome.
doesn't have time to.
So it's really
Yeah.
all about adding the value.
Yeah.
What, off to the next question. What is your definition of the hustle?
Oh boy.
And just so everyone here is listening,
I'm like looking
just
at my bookshelf. Do I have a dictionary?
just for everyone here watching, I didn't send Charlie any of these questions beforehand, so he's probably gonna be stumped in a couple of these, or I have to think for a second.
Yeah. The hustle is, I think it's doing stuff not because you want to get paid, but ultimately because it's stuff that you truly genuinely care about. And you're doing things, you just feel propelled to do them because you love to do this stuff and you care about it. And that to me is all the hustle is. And obviously for every internet person, they're going to think of Gary Vee when they think of the word hustle.
Sure.
And I think that's the truth with Gary too, is just he's propelled to do this stuff because he wants to buy the jets or whatever. But I think ultimately he would do a lot of this stuff for free because he just loves it so much. And I think, certainly I think once you really delve into it, you figure out whether you're passionate or not about it. But I think the hustle is just ultimately something you do not because of a paycheck, but because you have to.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to have a reason. You just love it,
Right.
or you just want to.
Love
So.
it. Right. Awesome. Now, in your opinion, why do you think most people who are doing online marketing, or really you can generalize this to anything, why do you think most people are not reaching their goals or not on track to reach their goals? And I'm going to give you a couple options to answer this. You think one, it's because, and don't say all of the above. You say one, because let's say they say they want to do something, but they don't take enough action, and then they make excuses. So not enough action, too many excuses, or they just don't want it bad enough. What do you think is, of those three reasons, don't want it bad enough, don't hustle enough, is why they're not successful? And if you have another answer, you can add that.
I think the first two are obvious. I wouldn't agree with they don't want it bad enough. I think everybody wants it. For me, what's helped is seeing that kind of success in action and the process of getting there. That to me has been the most valuable part of working with these guys, because most people they want to achieve a level of success that they have yet to witness in real life. Like they want to reach $100 million a year, and they don't know a single successful entrepreneur. And it's like, you can read all the books you want, but until you actually witness the work ethic that goes into that success, you cannot replicate it. You don't actually know what it takes to. If you're a musician, you might think, okay, this is the process from starting off in our garage to performing in front of 100,000 people. But until you've actually witnessed a band that has gone from point A to point Z, then you don't know what it takes. I don't think. I think, like I said, you can read all the books, all the blog posts you want. It doesn't matter. You have to witness it firsthand. For me, at least, that's the way I've learned. Is like I know now I could write a best-selling book.
Right.
But I also know that I suspected that all of it was going to be marketing. It's not the case.
Sure.
It was 80% focusing on making the best book possible and the most thorough, comprehensive. Yeah, I had no idea it was that high of a ratio. It might even be higher, frankly. But also having strategic marketing, I know the process of doing that. But to me, the most valuable part of working with Tim was actually not witnessing marketing. To me, it was the intensity he put into making a really, really good book.
Interesting. See, I would think somewhat of the opposite, that there are some crappy number one New York Times bestsellers out there, but they become number one because of the marketing behind it. But
Here's the thing. This is something a lot of people don't know, and I can tell you this because we did not do it. A lot of best-selling authors, people aren't aware, will buy their way onto the list.
sure.
And if you look at the New York Times bestseller list and you see that black diamond
Uh-huh.
next to the book, that means that they suspected there was some foul play.
No way.
And yeah, and we did not have that diamond.
Wow.
We did not buy our way onto the list. But people would be very, very surprised. You can essentially buy 20, 30,000 copies of your own book. And there are people who will enable you to do this.
Right.
It's kind of tricky. But yeah, there's a lot of crappy books that hit
And
the
those are the
bestseller list, and
and
we suspect that that's why.
and they probably only make the list for a week and then they're done because they.
You would be surprised. Well, here's the thing. So it is a safe bet to make, actually, because once you hit the bestseller list,
Wow.
people are like,
It's
oh,
attention.
it's this chicken or the egg kind
Right.
of dynamic of like your success kind of snowballs, and you're going to stay on the list
Uh,
simply for a matter
Being
of
on the
hitting the
list.
list. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
it's a gamble that some authors make, and I've seen authors who hit the bestseller list right away, and I'm like, that's garbage. I know that they bought their way onto the list,
Right.
but then they're still on it months later, and it's because and they can't do that unless they have a good book.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
it's like, okay, you earned your place at the table now, but
Right.
when the way you got here was a little shady.
Okay. Interesting. So, if you could do the entire process over for the last 2 years of writing the book and marketing it, and the launch and pre-launch and after launch, everything else, what's one or two things you'd do differently, just in general, not necessarily for the
Not
success of the
necessarily
book?
related to the book.
Yeah, I mean, just one or two things you'd do differently.
Um, I would have found honestly more structure in my days. I anybody who I've worked with, almost anybody, there are a few exceptions, will attest that I can work 18, 20 hours a day
Sure.
without destroying myself. Like I can work really hard, really long periods of time. And I just get caught up in stuff, and that's
Right.
not healthy at all.
Yeah.
I even when I was in Argentina, as entertaining as that post may be, there were some really stressful times where I was just focused on work, and it's just being like, God, what am I doing? I'm in Argentina, and I just like brought all
You should
this
be living the
stress.
dream.
Yeah, I mean, I was lugging around a 600-page manuscript in a cardboard box. I'm like,
Oh my
it was just
gosh.
it was too bad. I think I stayed in Colorado a little bit too long. I probably would have moved out here sooner.
Here
Um,
meaning San Francisco.
San Francisco. Um, and I would have read more books. I
Mm.
mean, I read a lot of books, but I really have atrophied lately, and it's embarrassing to me. Like for most Americans, I think the average number of books in America, or for Americans, is like one per year. It's something just embarrassing, and I mean, I was at a point where I was reading 10 books every 2 weeks,
Wow.
but it's really slowed down. That's
Now, are these
that's
business
those are
books or just books in general?
books in general. A lot. Once you read enough business books, you're like, all right,
They're all the
whatever, I
same.
get it. But
Yeah.
just reading books, it's taking more time out for myself. Honestly, like I am by definition a I wouldn't say workaholic because it's not like I'm addicted to it. I just do it.
Right.
So
So not necessarily reading books, but just taking more time out for yourself. For
yeah, I think honestly because it's like if I don't do that, my creativity is stifled. I'm less original in my thought process, and
right,
I
right.
just my
Drained.
thinking is not clear, all that
Yeah.
stuff. So
Okay, so now you gave me kind of one personal thing. Now give me one thing you do differently about the marketing behind the 4 Hour Body.
yeah, sure. One thing we could have done is, oh God, yeah, the land rush drove me nuts
The
because I
what?
mean, the land rush post,
Okay.
it's like it was this like epic post we did where it's like we give away $4 million worth of
Right.
bonus gifts for people who purchase, and it was crazy and it was awesome. But we were retards about it because we did 16 different packages, all which had multiple gifts in every single package.
Mm.
And it was like just this cluster F of, of just like bonus gifts, and people got confused. And it's like if we had, and I talked a little bit about this in the post, but if we had narrowed that down to like 5 killer packages,
Sure.
we would have increased our sales, ironically.
Less choices.
And yeah, paradox of choice, all that stuff. What else could we have done? It's funny because this was like the one line of that blog post that I was like, that's kind of a bullshit line, but it's good writing. So, so ridiculous. So, I mentioned in the post like what author, because I say Tim's most valuable asset is his blog, which is the truth.
Right.
But I asked like, what author would not use his 100,000 subscriber email list
Yeah.
over, like we didn't do that,
I
and it
don't
was
know
not
why you didn't do that. I have no
it was
idea.
it was not for a matter of like, oh, the blog's going to be a better use of
Right.
our time, which is actually kind of true.
Right.
But that is an untapped email list that's been building for 4 years.
Wow.
So it's like an email from that
Can't just
is
send
going
an
to be
email. Yeah.
almost, yeah, it was like it was going to be this whole long process of like, we got to create a drip sequence so we can filter out the crap and like actually earn the trust of these people again, because it's going to seem bizarre getting an email from the 4 Hour Work Week. So,
And why not? Why not 2 years ago when you first started, start saying, "Hey, let's start sending out video content once a month or a special."
oh, believe me, dude, I did.
You did.
I
He didn't want
did,
to do
yeah.
it.
And he was like, it's going to be way too much effort. And I was like, all right,
You know, what you should have done. You should have just done it for him. Say, here, I've
agreed.
already done this. All you have to do
Yeah,
is press
yeah.
send for this content. It's already done.
You caught me, Lewis. You caught me. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think we could have definitely done that, but Tim also did have access to millions of people on
Yeah.
developed email newsletters, so it wasn't like, shame.
Plus
So
tons of media all over the place and everything
yeah,
else.
yeah, but that stuff is actually a result of making a lot of noise online. Tim almost, I mean, most authors are like, "Oh, I'm going to chase after ABC, Today Show, blah blah blah." We actually got turned down by Today Show
Wow.
because the word "sex" is on the cover. Ironically, it's
Wow.
so stupid.
I thought that
Um,
sells.
yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you guys thinking? Um, but yeah, all the resulting press came from just making a lot of noise online.
Right. Interesting. Okay. What is the greatest lesson you learned from any of these guys? Maybe say one of Tim, and then if say of all the people you worked with over the last 5 years, let's say.
Man, I've learned so many from, and not like to verbally jerk them off or anything, but it's the truth. I've learned so much from these guys. Um, with Seth, like I said, has had easily the most influence on my career over
Sure.
anybody. He taught me that it's better to pursue a remarkable, unique path than it is to necessarily chase after money or
Sure.
worry about your resume and stuff, and like to do stuff that you genuinely really love and care about,
Right.
and stuff that interests you because it's spiritually sustainable.
Right.
And with Ramit, I don't know. I I love Ramit because he's funny as hell, and he's just an awesome guy. And but with Ramit, he's he he has actively gone out of his way to like help me in many scenarios. Like he's been the most giving
Mm.
of, I think, everyone I've worked with. Like he
He
really goes out of his way
he's really
to,
taught you to be rich, huh?
indeed, rich spiritually. Yeah. Um, no, Ramit and I kind of learned a bunch of different marketing techniques at the same time. Some like really powerful ones that
Nice.
are like scary powerful. And we kind of went through that at the same time. And now he's using that knowledge to launch his other products, and they're doing awesome.
Right.
But he also, okay, so this is a funny story. So we went in to consult Gary Vaynerchuk for the launch of his first book.
Mm. Crushing it.
And yeah, and Ramit was kind of bringing up he had a question for Gary. He was like, we're thinking of talking to some of these guys, and they're online marketers who have huge followings and like make a ton of money, whatever. And Gary, who I thought dispensed some great advice, was like, look, if you go into that circle, you are not going to come out. Your brand will not survive.
Right.
Those guys make a lot of money. They do really well, but you will always be perceived as one of them. And that's what you don't want to have happen. And Ramit just goes, I disagree. And here's why. And like, like coming from Gary, who like had interacted with those guys, was so funny to me. I was just like restraining my laughter. It's just like
Wow.
such a funny thing to say. It's just like, no, you're wrong. And sure enough, like honestly, Ramit was right. Ramit is really intelligent, and like he approaches things so systematically,
Mm.
and uh, yeah, he's just a smart dude, and he's got the scammiest sounding product on the planet,
And
and
his website name, yeah.
yeah, I mean, it sounds terrible, but he was able to make that into a really high quality brand.
Right. And for
It just,
example, Gary's awesome, and I'm friends with Gary as well, and I can see his point of view where he doesn't want to tap into that because of
yeah,
his position already in the media and his companies that he works with. But also, I look at Tim, and those who may not know, Tim worked with a lot of information marketers,
oh yeah,
huge fitness marketers who do some of the most aggressive, let's say, marketing out there online that you could possibly do. And so he associated himself with a lot of people, but that helped him really sell a lot more books. And I
sure.
don't think it hurt his brand at one bit. So,
No, no. And I think the lesson there is if you have awesome stuff,
yeah,
just awesome stuff that's not shady and it's not trying to extract as much as possible and it's not trying to affiliate
right,
link the hell out of you just for the sake of making an extra several $1,000s, I guess,
right,
then you can walk on those shady waters and make it across.
sure,
Um, I guess with Tucker, Tucker's a genius, and he's legitimately a genius. And the dude, while he comes across as an asshole and is a self-proclaimed asshole, I actually consider him a good friend and somebody I still look up to insofar as like he thinks relentlessly long term, and he is very much the kind of person who just wants to like dominate a landscape and disrupt industries, and like he will always bounce back. And people and I was getting some of these emails too of just like, how does it feel to be a failure? And because he was like, he's such a public personality online and was so open about what he thought the success he was going to achieve was,
right,
that people were throwing it right back in his face as soon as he didn't achieve it. Now, I thought, that was a lesson I learned from him is like, do not brag about that stuff in public. And he learned that lesson as well.
wow,
But do not brag about success that you have not had yet,
mm,
basically.
yeah,
And but here's the thing, and I've said it before, is I will continue to place bets on Tucker because he is an entrepreneur at heart. He will bounce back over and over. And no matter how many failures get thrown in his face, he can recover and he will bounce back just as aggressively and he will have learned from his mistakes.
Mm.
And that is the key to being a success, I think. With Tim, I've learned countless things. Tim has taught me more patience, I think, than I've ever. Like working with Ramit and Tucker, they write off emails like literally making fun of people who email them to their face. Like, um, Ramit, I remember Ramit got this crazy email and he BCC'd me or CC'd me. And he was like, this person just, their email was insane. It was crazy. It made no sense. And it was really long. And all Ramit wrote to them was, "Are you insane?" and like, and
Oh
Tucker,
my
Tucker does
gosh.
the same thing. He'll just, he'll write in all caps angrily, or or at least he used to, or he'll just make fun of them or whatever.
Wow.
Uh,
That takes some guts right
Tim,
there.
sure, but those guys don't care. But
Right.
Tim is like very, very. Uh, he's much more diplomatic. And really, always is like he has taught me how to diffuse like so many situations through email that would have blown up in my face. I've really learned to be better at customer service
Yeah.
and winning people over who you would think are just enormous haters or
Right.
trolls or whatever.
Right. My business partner, because I get pretty intense. Like when someone, I feel like someone's personally attacking me for whatever reason, I like take serious offense, and I'm just like, f you, whatever, screw you,
Yeah,
and I just want to tell them off and just whatever. But my business partner, luckily, always just tells me, you know what, just kill them with kindness, and they'll shut up and they'll go away. So,
yeah.
but
If you treat him like a person, honestly, like with the lawsuit guy, I did not email him right away. I
right,
called him
wow,
immediately after getting it. I was like, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened. Is there anything I can do for you? Is there any way we can make this up? I would never have expected that this would happen, blah, blah, blah. And I mean,
it
as
blew
soon
them
as
away
you
probably.
yeah, it's like as soon as you reintroduce, like, look, there's a human on the other side of this who cares, who really cares, and is not blowing you off. It was not my choice that this happened. I
Right,
did
right,
not intentionally screw you over,
right.
but I will make amends.
Exactly, awesome. Okay, let's say you're in a year or 6 months or whenever you're done working with Tim, or it may be longer. Let's say you're done working with Tim. It's 2015. When you look back on it and you could choose one person to work with again, who would it be and why?
Whew,
Only
good
one, only
question.
only one person.
Yeah.
Say they all asked you to come back and work for them, and you can only choose one, and then
And they have.
you never work with any of them ever again.
Wow.
Who would it be and why?
Man, I don't know if I can answer that. Like, that's, I mean, I love all these guys for different reasons,
Hmm.
and I would work with all of them for different reasons. Like, obviously, had the most fun, crazy, wild time with Tucker. Had a blast with Ramit. Seth, I didn't work firsthand with really. I've only met the guy once. But Tim has actually been, and I have to say this because he's my current employer. No, I'm just joking. No, Tim has actually been the most probably I don't know the right word for it, nurturing, I guess, or he's been the most active mentor that I've
Mm,
had. Like he will say stuff like I've never had anybody say this kind of stuff to me before. Is just like he'll be like, "I want you to get better at negotiating." Like if I have a screw up or something, he'll be like, "Okay, but we still need to focus on getting you better at these key areas that you want to get better at."
mm,
And it's like that's cool because I told him that stuff like a year ago. It's like I want to get better at negotiating. I want to get better at film. I want to get better at X, Y, and Z. And he has a very proactive role in that, and
mm.
he ensures that I am progressing on the path that I want to go down.
Interesting. So, would your answer be Tim, or would it be
I can't answer. It's so unfair.
That's awesome.
I do love all those guys. Tim is who I'm working with
Yeah.
permanently right now, and I will say that those other guys did offer me positions on a more
You ch-
permanent basis of working with them,
and you chose
and
Tim.
I'm working with Tim.
There you go. Awesome. It was a trick question, so I wasn't really
Yeah.
expecting you to answer it. But okay, who can now? This is hopefully you can answer this one. Who has given you the best advice?
um, I think Seth and Tim. Like I said, Seth, but it's not like Seth went out of his way
Right.
to specifically give me personal advice. And Seth has actually been the worst at that because I remember. Maybe someday I'll make this email public, but I don't want to right now. Of just like me writing this long email before I'd ever interacted with Seth, like just asking him for advice, basically.
Right.
And he was just like, Charlie, sorry, don't have time. Thanks. Like, just like, what? But
But he
that's
probably
like,
gets 10 of those a day.
yeah, exactly. And I didn't understand that at the time, so I got all butthurt about it. But his books, his Purple Cow book and Permission Marketing actually like really inspired me and took away the negative stigma that I had on marketing, which Bill Hicks induced in me. I don't know if you've ever seen Bill Hicks's stand-up comedy, but man, does he just tear into marketers. It just like made me feel so bad about my life at the time. But Seth changed that, and um, yeah, and Tim has given me the most advice of just like, I mean, he gave a little advice on my TED speech that I just made the other day, and really helped with like, here's the two things you really need to focus on. And the speech went over almost perfectly, just because I took his advice on. He's done his own speech in the past before, so
Awesome.
he's done tons of speeches. So,
Awesome. Okay, so last two questions.
mhm.
What have you created? Now you've got, I think there's four #1 New York Times bestsellers you've worked with.
Yeah, they're not
What?
all number ones. Ramit
Okay,
is
New
not
York
a
Times.
number one.
New
I
York
don't think
Times.
Seth Godin is, but yeah, they're all New York Times
Okay,
bestsellers.
so four New York Times bestsellers. Have you created your own formula, and for any author could use to become a New York Times bestseller? And it's probably too much to actually answer what the exact formula is, but have you, and could you maybe share one great part about that formula besides writing an amazing book?
So there's clearly like no given formula to become a number one New York Times bestseller. There's not. If you want to become a number one New York Times bestseller, you do have to be good at marketing.
Right.
Like you cannot be propelled instantaneously to number one. Like it took, I think it took Tucker a few years before he actually hit number one, of
Wow.
him just hovering in the number four, number five spots,
Interesting.
and then he finally hit it. Um, the the thing I noticed is the 4 hour work week and the 4 hour body have something in common that I don't think people give it enough credit for. If you look at the end of each chapter, there is a list of resources, and Tim breaks down the steps so much that it becomes almost impossible to get confused by it, even though a lot of people still do. Um, it's almost impossible to get confused. And then he says, look, here's the tools that I use.
Right.
Here's how you can use them. He basically spoon feeds how to succeed with your body or your work to you.
Right.
He eliminates
The guesswork.
the mental exertion part.
Mm.
And Ramit does the exact same thing.
Wow.
And they both provide that list of resources, and they provide the exact steps so you don't have to think about it. And that to me is going the extra mile, because a lot of authors do not do that. Like you still have to piece stuff together, and like even if you buy, as I'm sure you've seen, like even if you buy a $5,000, $10,000 online marketing course, it's like, what? This is incomplete. Like they gave me a lot of stuff, but like we're missing big chunks, and they're like, well, you got to buy my next course, and it's
Right.
ugh. So I think those guys like just focus on like doing all that mental guesswork for people. And Tucker's book is completely I can't. I mean, it's just the secret to writing a number one bestseller is to write a really freaking good book that is way above everybody else on the playing field.
Right.
And that's the truth. Is like if you can find a better drunk male frat boy type story book than I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, I'll give you, I don't know, a high five, whatever. But like the fact is like that one was the first on the playing field that talked about those topics in a way that was engaging to guys.
Right.
And then a whole slew of other books came out that was kind of like it. Same with 4 Hour Work Week. There was a lot of other books that were like it. Like The 7-Day Weekend is also a great book. Not structured that well.
Right.
It isn't. 4 Hour Work Week is structured very, very well. So write a great table of contents. I mean, there's a whole list of elements, but those are the big ones.
Okay, cool. And last question, what is next for you? Are you going to be working with Tim for a while, or are you going to be traveling? Are you going to be doing your own thing? What's next?
No, I'm going to be working with Tim for definitely a while. I've got side projects and stuff. I always do random stuff if I can. I mean, I help film my friend's art project that he does around San Francisco. Ramit and I have developed an iPhone app that we've been sitting on for an embarrassingly long amount of time. I'm going to be developing hopefully a suite of apps that revolve around the 4 Hour Body and just doing a whole bunch of other stuff. And
Cool.
believe me, man, I have a private tag in Delicious that's like ideas, and it's several dozen things that I know I could turn into profitable businesses. But those will go on hold for now. My whole approach has been learn how to start successful businesses. Like learn the mistakes that failed businesses make, and so you can go off, not repeat their mistakes, and succeed. And once you learn that stuff, I think it's much more valuable for people to learn that stuff, because then you have created for yourself a formula for wealth that can last the rest of your life.
Right.
And I think it pays to take a few years to maybe not eliminate, but reduce the amount of money you're going to be paid and learn that stuff, because that will scale, like I said, for the rest of your life.
Don't try to take a paycheck right now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I'm getting paid good money now, but in the first 2 years, man,
Struggling, huh?
I could not talk to girls because it was just like, we're not going to date. I cannot afford anything right now.
Interesting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, one last final thing. I told you before we started this, we're going to make this like a 20-minute interview, but it's really actually an hour now. So for those,
Is it really?
it's been an hour. So for those who are, we're right up to an hour. So for those who are still watching this and have been so in tune to everything that Charlie's been saying, Charlie, what is it that you want people to know about you, or how can they help you, or what can they do to move anything forward that you're working on, or spread any type of message? What can they do?
So I will say that if they truly wanted to work for me, they would take the approach that I did, which was I didn't ask what these guys were working on. I pieced it together. Mm-hmm. And then I approached them with stuff that I thought could improve their existing plans or what I saw of it. Most people who have approached me, and it's very, very flattering and very humbling to actually receive these offers now, given that I was in those shoes a few years ago. Right. But most of the offers I get is just like, just tell me what to do. And I can't do anything with that. Like I said earlier, it's just like, I don't know. Right. I'm not going to tell you what to do. Honestly, I don't outsource anything really. I'm helping this one guy. I'm working with a guy named Ronnie who showed some interest, and I met with him for lunch one day, and he seems like a really sharp kid who a lot of similarities to me when I was 21.
Hmm.
And so I'm tentatively kind of putting my toes into those waters of like, okay, maybe I can hand out some work now. But I typically take the approach of like, I want to learn everything. I do all the work. I'm not going to outsource anything. If it's going to be a waste of my time, I'm just not going to do it. It's not like I'm going to outsource it. So,
Right.
uh, yeah,
Awesome. Cool.
that's my long rambling answer.
Awesome. All right. So where should people go to say hi to you online?
If you want to come check me out, just go to charliehoehn.com, CharlieHoehn.com. I write there once every like 4 months, and it's like the least dynamic blog on the internet. And I have to update it soon because it's an embarrassing design. Still standing next to cows. It's ridiculous. So you'll see if you visit the site. So I have to change that.
I love it.
But yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate it, Charlie. This is you've gone above and beyond what I asked previously, so I appreciate you sticking around for an hour and having a
Yeah,
conversation with
absolutely.
me. And
My pleasure.
any last final words or any motto that you live by life that you want to tell people before we leave?
There's sure. There's a few mottos I live by. They're something I kept on my bathroom mirror from when I was 12 to 23, 24. Was I worked for a menial's hire only to learn dismayed that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. And
Hmm.
semi-ironic given that I did so much free work and working for so little, and like I could be making a lot more money now.
Right.
But I think the ultimate thing, ultimately why I had that was just like you don't have to live a life that you've just accepted as your fate, that you're not content with. Like you can go after what you want if you do it smart and strategically and get what you want.
Right.
And the other one is just uh, be smart, be nice, do what you love, and have fun. That's it.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, with that, I'll let you guys go. Thanks so much, Charlie. I appreciate it, my man.
Thanks,
And
Lewis.
hope to see you soon.
Yeah, likewise.